to the process of consistently producing your work and getting out into the world?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so this 100-day challenge that I did, um, little did I know what I was getting myself into, because at first I thought, okay, I wanted to start becoming more consistent on social media, and also I thought it was a great way to show up in my studio every single day, no matter what. This was 100 days without any weekends off or anything like that. So we're talking 3.5 months of solidly showing up in your studio every single day. And the scary part, posting it on Instagram no matter what. So there was a level of accountability to it. So apart from having to show up every day, it didn't matter how busy I got, if I was cranky or in a bad mood or had a headache or anything like that. I had to figure it out and I had to show up. And so it was wonderful in terms of the discipline of showing up and just working on things. And really, it's a little bit like what Stephen Pressfield talks about, going from an amateur to going pro. Pros show up every day. They don't wait for inspiration. They just show up and they just work away at their craft. And then things actually happen once you start. It's pretty interesting. That's one of the things you do learn.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so apart from the discipline of showing up every day, there was this interesting thing. I referred to myself as a recovering perfectionist before. I'd always been taught as an artist, like going through art school ages ago, not to really show any of my work till it was finished. And that's almost like the reverse of what people really want. They want to be brought along on the journey. They get really intrigued by artistic process and how you actually channel, the muses and how you actually bring these things into form. They're fascinated by that. So when you allow them in, they feel very much a part of your tribe. And they also, they follow the journey. They feel fascinated by it. They get to come along into this special world that you allow them into. And what's really interesting is then they fall in love with the work and they actually become collectors and buyers and avid followers. And then they share your work with others. It's a really wonderful ripple effect. So none of that happens if you're trying to be that polished, perfect person and just share the perfect finished thing. If you wait for that, then you lose all that amazing journey and tribe building stuff that happens when you share your process. So that was another thing I learned in spades. And then some really wonderful things happened because I chose to do my project on 100 days of painting places I've been. It was getting to relive all my most favorite travels throughout my entire life. And I've been very lucky to travel all over the world. So I got to relive.
How sweet.
Yeah. So I got to relive and recreate experiences, my favorite places, and share them with other people. So what was fascinating about that was I then got followers from all over the world. So if I worked on work from Australia, a number of Australians started to follow me. Or if I worked on work from Southeast Asia, then people from that part of the world became interested, and Europeans and North Americans. So I ended up getting followers from everywhere. And some of them were really interesting people. There was actually an Academy Award nominated film producer from Australia that came on the journey. All the Australia paintings he really loved. I got to know some really interesting people that I never would have met otherwise, fellow artists and other followers from different parts of the world. There was an IKEA designer from Sweden who liked a bunch of stuff. There was even a Hollywood, he was a Hollywood hunk. He was a Calvin Klein model. That was just, a little icing on the cake one day. It was kind of fun to find out, oh my goodness, you never know what you're going to find out when you post on Instagram or who you're going to meet. So that was just a fun thing. But I also had really wonderful, very heartfelt opportunities show up. I got approached to do a show at the last minute. And because I had all of this work, I had to pull together this art show very, very quickly. So I had the inventory to do that. So a show happened. I also got a wonderful commission to do a couple of paintings for a wedding. Basically, two families wanted me to create some artwork for the newly wedded couple. So I got to make work that's going to be an instant family heirloom, and it's a gift of love from two families to a young couple starting out. It was just beautiful, and that would never have happened if I hadn't done this challenge and shown up every single day. I had people writing me. There might have been a weekend where I was a little slow posting, and I actually got messaged by people saying, I've come to look forward to seeing what you make every single day, and I didn't realize how much it was adding to my day. And I didn't see the work today, and it made me really sad. And I just wanted to let you know that you're making such a difference. And that was very moving and touching. But it also made me realize the responsibility I then had to really keep showing up because it meant something to people. It was making a difference. So I hope everyone realizes that whatever you put out into the world, you are making a difference in a much more profound way than you perhaps realize. And it's very important for us to show up, not just for us, but for everyone else. So it really taught me that as well. It was a lot of very profound lessons doing that challenge.
I want to go a little bit more into consistency as well, because a lot of creative leaders would never consider missing a deadline or commitment to a client, but are constantly inconsistent with producing and shaping their own work. Can you give me your take on the importance of that consistency in shipping your work into the world? Maybe as you've learned, not only as an art director, but also through your challenge in some of the other areas, some of the benefits of that consistency.
Oh, yes. So consistency, it's true what you say. Some of us would never in a million years think of missing a deadline or disappointing a client, but we don't show up for ourselves. And it's pretty sad. So consistency in terms of your own creative projects, well, it really matters because, you need to honor your own commitments to yourself. You need to show up for yourself and for others because, like I said before, you often don't realize the impact of your own work. And other people were writing and telling me how inspired they were because, old colleagues from my previous life in advertising were seeing me posting in such a consistent way. They were writing to me and feeling very, very inspired and encouraged that, yes, there's life beyond advertising, and wanting to either invent or get their own personal projects going. And without consistency, you don't really have the momentum. And once you do start to show up consistently, things actually do get easier. It's actually much harder on yourself to start and stop and start and stop. It's like starting a cold engine. Whereas when you get consistency happening, you can just keep the momentum going, and you can see how things get shaped. You can try different things. It opens up a lot more creativity and possibility. But it's really it also helps bust the resistance monster down to size, because you just learn to work around it. I think all of us have our own little tricks and tools that we use to deal with resistance, and consistency, is one of the biggest ways to do that. Because when you're consistent, even if you don't necessarily love what you did that day, at least you showed up. And it's like a muscle that you develop. It's like going to the gym. If you only went to the gym once every 2 months, you're not going to get in shape. But if you're going consistently, 3-4 times a week or every day, you're going to get stronger. You're going to be able to deal with resistance in a much better way, and you're going to produce. If you chip away a little bit, even if you just showed up half an hour a day, it's much better than not showing up at all. We also sort of pull that one on ourselves where we think it needs to be all day, every day. Well, if all you're able to do that day is half an hour, then you showed up. You were consistent.
That's funny. I saw a Facebook meme earlier this morning that said something to the effect of, it doesn't matter how slow you're going, you're still lapping the people who are sitting on a couch. As you just said, just showing up and doing your work is better than the folks who are doing nothing and complaining about how things don't get done or life isn't improving.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
Which brings me back, as you were just talking about some of your daily practices. You come out of a very outside imposed, deadline intensive business into one in which you've got to have far more self-discipline in creation and shipping your work. Talk a little bit about some of the processes that you employ, both in your outward focus, but also your inward focus practices. Some of the things that you were saying earlier to honor yourself.
I think that's a really great question, because I think resistance has its way with us as creators. Often it just gets much more intense when you shift from a collaborative process where there's a structure and deadlines and other people and kind of like a bit of adrenaline from the deadline to keep you going, versus when you're a solitary person by yourself in a studio, or whatever you choose to do, whether you're faced with the blank screen or the blank page. So a lot of it, I find, comes down to learning how to actually just have a lot more self-compassion, and understanding that what you're doing, the way I look at most of my efforts is to just look at it as a grand experiment, to constantly be curious rather than self-critical or to beat up on myself. Hey, I tried, I put something out there. And it's only when you actually put something out there that you can then get feedback. The feedback is extremely valuable. So you put something out there, maybe it's a disappointing result, but then you can be curious about, okay, well, what worked, what didn't work? You actually now have feedback that you can actually take and use as like a positive spiral, rather than, beating yourself up and staying stuck and not moving forward. If you shift your thinking into one of curiosity and actually being self-compassionate, that's why it's so critical, because that's where the learning is. That's where the refinements come in. And other things that I do in terms of self-practice to just kind of keep myself inspired and going. Very, very simple things. I'm a lifelong meditator. I've been meditating for, I guess, well over 15 years now. And I if I ever miss a day, I'm a bit of a mess. So I am very committed to meditating every morning. It's like exercise for your mind. It's like, it creates a lot of opening for understanding intuition and just slowing down and being able to receive and to hear what's coming up for you, to actually, a lot of your intuitive voice can often be fairly quiet. And when the busyness of life and everything we have to do in a day can often crowd that out. So it's important for me in my practice to carve out a little chunk of time every day just to be able to hear and listen to what's coming up for me. And then I can decide, what to take action on next. I believe in taking walks and going to yoga and eating properly. I mean, I love sugar, but it doesn't love me. So I have to actually be disciplined about, eating well and looking after myself and treating myself with a lot of kindness. And I know it's not exciting or a sexy answer or anything like that, but those very simple things seem to work wonders for me. I would also add that being alone for long stretches of time, often you're in a studio by yourself for a number of days. I would say forming a community of support is really critical. So whether that's, like a weekly mastermind call, or going and having coffee with a friend, or reaching out to other people, sometimes when we're introverts, we can be alone too much. And then those sort of the negative voices can really kind of get an opening. So I would say that get a support network around you, however whatever that looks like for you. I basically have been blessed with so many wonderful people in a couple of different circles in my life